All right, fellas, we live. We are live. We are live. And this week we are talking about the Department of Education because we need to talk about it. And so yeah, I'm hella folks this week, man, because there's a lot of things happening in the stratosphere, and we can only control what's in our sphere. And so yeah, Department of
Yeah.
Education. So Steve, man, you wanted to talk about this. What were your thoughts?
I mean, I think, one of the things that we continue to hear about the Department of Education, um, on the other side, right, is when folks say, hey, we should get rid of it, a lot of what we hear is like, well, test scores ain't that good or students aren't performing that well. And, what it made me realize was that I don't know that folks clearly understand the role that the U.S. Department of Education plays in sort of our education system. And so for me, I think the first thing I think we need to ground ourselves in is like, what does the Department of Education actually do? What impact does it have on states and on teaching and learning that happens there? Because I feel like a lot of this is predicated on, I don't want to say misinformation, but potentially not as full an understanding of what the federal government is actually doing with the Department of Education versus what's the responsibility of states, the localities, the schools in and of themselves. Because I think that's the first piece of this. And why someone like me gets so up in arms about folks saying they want to dismantle the Department of Education is because there are some essential programs that are there, right? Things like the Pell Grant, federal work study, right? All of those things from a higher ed perspective, the evaluation of higher ed and their ability to help graduate students, those things are all sit in the Department of Ed, rather than, what content, what curriculum a student is being taught on any given day.
Yeah. And
I'm
go ahead.
just wanna make that clear. I'm folks. Just wanted to say. Go ahead, Grant.
Your folks. We know. I'm looking at you when I say that.
Yeah. If I'm being totally honest about my kind of general understanding of all of the things that the Department of Ed does, the US DOE does, I have a lot of gaps. There are a lot of things that I'm not sure. I don't know who owns what, how certain money or funds make their way all the way to our school, and who the decision makers are on that. And so I don't think they were necessarily, I guess maybe for the last couple of years, have been preparing to make the case for their existence and their value, but they're going to need to go on a roadshow to really kind of break down all of the ways that they do add value and kind of tie our decentralized education system together.
So
All right.
one of the most important slides just that is this one. This is what the department doesn't do, and that's curriculum control, right? So the department has no authority over what's taught in schools. It's localized. Curriculum decisions are responsibility of states and local districts. In the Every Student Succeeds Act reinforces the principle of local control over curriculum. And so that's one of the major misconceptions right there. When folks think about the Department of Education, like, oh, they're the ones that's teaching our kids this, and this, right? And so that's one of the major misconceptions. So what can you do in terms of a marketing standpoint to let people know that, hey, this is not what we do?
No, and I wonder because it's one of those things that we continue. We have our friend Bib, right? Shout out to Bib, who does a lot of great research on what parents, what parents think their students are doing, but what's actually happening in classrooms and how they think their students performing, what's actually happening in classrooms. And I think this is the first thing I'd say is like before anyone decides they are for or against sort of the federal DOE, I think you all should do your due diligence to figure out the things that you're frustrated about the system. Because from my understanding, there are three key things that the federal government does when it comes to K-12 education. Title I, which is helping give money for low-income schools, right? The federal dollars to support teaching students with disabilities, and then they manage the NAEP process. Outside of that, there isn't a lot of input. There's not a lot of push that the federal government has for the local school districts in the K through 12 system. Time out. I'm gonna time right there. I'm gonna time out right there.
The first
time right there.
think about the first two things that you said. 1 second, yeah. Hey, the first two things that you said, right? You said title grants, and you
Title
said
I grant.
students with disabilities. Those are all things that I feel comfortable with saying that like this administration doesn't give two shits about. And so it makes it easier for them to go in and make that argument because they have a lack of care for the two things that we mentioned: poor kids and accessibility. Is that fair? Is that a fair statement?
That's a fair statement for why they want to get rid of it. I'm not certain that the average person who supports why they're getting rid of it understands that. I'm sorry, I jumped in on you, G. No, you're on mute, buddy.
Oh no, I was agreeing. I wasn't interrupting. Go ahead.
Yeah,
I thought I got a technical, not a timeout.
in thinking of it in that way, right? When you're looking at it, you're like, hey, all right. What brings us back to the whole argument of DEI, right? So, like, we're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and a lot of times people leave out the A, which is accessibility. That fits into the first two paradigms of what we're talking about here, right? And so if you're talking about an elimination of access for a certain subgroup, whatever, then this right into the playbook. This fits right into Project 2025 playbook. This guy had already developed them, right? Like, I don't have anything to do with that. I don't know these people. I don't, whatever. I don't know.
No, I think that's right. Look, here's what I'm saying is that, like, I don't think that even through a DE&I lens, my math might be wrong, but if I did the math on the number of students who live in poverty, I think by sheer numbers, there are more non-DEI students who are living in poverty. And I don't know that there's I could be wrong, a significantly high correlation between students with disabilities and in general and DEI quote unquote students or students of color. And so for me, like that's the issue here, right? I think we're dealing with folks who conceptually don't like the idea of the federal government spending money on things. But I mean, we're talking about like making sure there's a ramp accessible for your students who have wheelchairs, right? We're talking making sure that there's someone to help a student with a computer if they can't, if they're unable to speak. Like, we're talking about sort of fundamental things to help our citizens learn. Like, that's what that is. It's not about the other stuff that they are concerned with happening, right? The DEI agenda, if you will.
Yeah.
I don't know what y'all think about how those dollars are spent in your schools, but like, let me tell you, as a student, as a father of a student with an IEP, that stuff feels really important to me.
Yeah,
and it should.
Yeah. No, it's critical. It's critical funding. There are often times when I as a person who has to fill out that paperwork and go through those processes, like sometimes it feels very distant and bureaucratic, and I'm requesting these. I'm trying to fill out these forms that don't really apply to our school or the threshold for funding. Like, we're just under it, or we're not eligible unless we go in on like a Title III consortium, stuff like that. That makes getting those funds more difficult than it should be. So from that perspective, I'm like, man, like that's very annoying. However, notwithstanding, like we still need that money to educate the diverse population of students that we have. So it's a valuable resource from that perspective.
Bro, I will speak for every school leader of color in the United States that has to fill out that OCCR report, that the Office of Civil Rights report that we got to do yearly in terms of the collection of data. And like, man, that is so cumbersome. And
man.
Like, bro, I push back every time they send it. I'm like, Trump don't even want this. What is it? He doesn't even want this. Like, why are you sending me this? Trump already said he's not doing this. Like, why are y'all collecting this? And they respond back, Dr. Ankrum, we understand your concerns, but we still need the information. So I'm like, yo, what's going on? I need a win here.
Well, apparently there are a bunch of folks in the government now who just want the access to the data to do all sorts of weird data stuff with it.
Which brings me to even more issues, right? Because if we're talking about FERPA, we're talking about HIPAA, we're talking about like all the things, right? All the protections that we have as normal citizens. You have someone that has not been elected at all. That is assuming the role, I feel, of the chief executive officer of the country, under the guise of Doge, and it's bothering me.
No, I mean, listen, I think it's ironic to me that the crowd that was screaming, but her emails and those personal servers are cool with people running around with their own private zip drives, plugging them in and having access to social security numbers. But that's just me. I don't know nothing about that. But
it is wild out here, man. I mean, I know we're talking about the Department of Education, and we'll get right back to that in a second. But I think that this is a healthy conversation to have. Yeah. Bro, he has accumulated over $100 billion in net worth since Trump took office. We're talking Elon Musk has accumulated an additional $130 billion since Trump has been in office.
All I gotta say is, now that he got access to my social security number and maybe to my Google search history, let the man cook. Leave him alone.
Hey, fair enough. Cool. Hey, bro. Steve, last question before we jump back in. Where's Vivek?
No, listen, he's going to run for governor, right? That's what happened, right?
I didn't know that. I thought it was just like, in 300 when there's that big hole and there can only be one. You're like, bah!
This is Sparta.
Oh man. So Steve, man, we right in your area right now, baby.
This is it. All right, this is the thing that gets.
Yeah. About to unleash you around the horn, baby. All right, so college financial aid and student loans, right? So the department manages the federal student loan portfolio, which totals approximately $1.6 trillion, which is absolutely ridiculous. I got some ideas about that. We can talk about that. It oversees the FAFSA, which they dropped the bag last year for that. And then FSA, the federal student aid, distributes $120 billion annually in grants, work study funds, and loans. And I'm gonna tell y'all about how much work study means to kids that are struggling to pay for college. And then FSA also manages relationships with student loan servicers. So, bro, what's your thoughts on this? What's the most important point of that you see that resonates for you in this slide?
I think the most important thing to say is that, look, at the end of the day, there is significant research and data that says that students who earn a bachelor's degree are much better off for the rest of their life than those who just come out of college with a high school degree or even with an associate's.
Yep.
And we know that one of the biggest issues stopping most students from being able to get that degree is the inaffordability of college. These 100%. Programs are essential to ensuring that students, regardless of their income bracket, have access to being able to earn a college degree and transform their social and economic mobility. My organization, 100% of the students we work with are Pell eligible students, receive Pell, receive some type of grant aid and loans, and so they are trying to do everything they can. You think we've got a college debt crisis now? Get rid of some of these programs, and this economy will fall apart at sort of the crushing weight of what it costs to send a kid to college. And so for me, the biggest concern I have is, I almost don't worry about whether there's a Department of Education or not. Where I worry about what happens to these programs. Because the programs, to me, are the most important part of the work that's happening at the federal government level.
Yeah. G, jump in.
I mean, I think about the federal work study programs and how important that is. Like once you get to school,
yeah,
and you're trying to figure out the ways to make ends meet, maybe you were sent off with like a couple of graduation presents and you got a couple $100 in your pocket, and you got to make that last until the next time you go home, Thanksgiving. Like that first 6 months of school is really make it or break it time, where you're trying to navigate a new space, trying to figure out advising, making it, getting a new environment, social environment, and just the academic rigors of school, like on top of trying to like piece together different disparate sources of funds. Like it can be so stressful, and like programs like federal work study, like that closes the gap. It closed the gap for me, it closed the gap for so many students. So
bro, I want to say this, put a screen on me, speaking solely for me. If you are someone that has someone in college, send them care packages, send them cards, send them words of encouragement, right? Like it's I want to say it's akin to how you how we treat folks that are in prison. Like we put money on their books and we support them in ways in which they need to be supported based off of crimes or things that they may have done, right? I don't want to personalize this, get into the system. But the same way we're supporting those people that have been disenfranchised, make sure that you're supporting college students, because at the end of the day, like it means the world. I'm a person that never received a care package, but I lived in rooms with homies that like got care packages all the time, and the look on my face when the package came, I'm just like, damn, every week this cat is getting a package or whatever.
We send a care package as part of our program. We send a care package to every bottom line student. Each semester they get a care package from us. And while there's when they graduate, we call it recognition night. When we have our graduation party for our college graduates, we give them a chance to speak. Yeah, everyone has a chance to sort of say something at the microphone, and we hear two things all the time. One, the relationship with their advisor and how critical that was, right? The person helping them through the process. And the second thing everyone always says, and man, did I need that care package? Man, did that lift my spirits? Man, did that, we send them a little trinket. Man, did I love that? We send them candy and food. Man, did I love that candy? Like they look forward to it. And I think people don't realize just how much folks who are in college, particularly those who are away at college, are in need, right? Many of the students who receive Pell, who are on federal work study, also are trying to qualify for have food insecurity. They're trying to get federal aid for food. Some of them are housing insecure, and that can get in the way of their progress to the degree, and it shouldn't.
One of the things that I didn't do that some of the homies was doing, because they knew the system. I had homeboys that was applying for food stamps, bro, and like I didn't do it, but like if I had a chance, if I had a do-over, man.
Well, I mean, I think this is the issue. So this is the issue for me with the Department of Education, is that depending on where some of these programs go, let's say we do get rid of the Department of Education, right? Let's say Congress actually supports that, because you require an act of Congress to get rid of a department. So let's say Congress goes along and they get rid of it and they move some of these programs in some places. Does that place have the ethos to run that program the way it should be run, right? So if we send loans over to the Department of Treasury, are they going to run it the way somebody who has an education mindset will want a loan program run, or are they going to run it based on the way Treasury would run a loan program, right? And I think those are the types of things that I get worried about, right? Is like who actually ends up holding that responsibility, and what rules do they put in place to sort of run that program better for students?
So we talked about the monitoring of educational progress, and last week we talked about NAEP, and so NAEP is huge in terms of keeping people honest, right? Because I'm wondering if you didn't have a NAEP in which we had a national way to kind of monitor how each state is doing in comparison to each, how many of these states would even be honest about how they're doing?
Yeah.
Think about it. Like,
they spent stories, and we got data, and we got local data, right? I've seen people be like, "Our school does this, and that," and I look at the data and be like, "No, it don't." Right? There's data out there.
This is a recipe for don't ask, don't tell.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
It's true. I mean, people spend a lot of time already just trying to differentiate state contexts and say like, oh well, like this is the student population we have, this is the context we have with our workforce and labor market and what have you, and therefore that's why we need to kind of measure ourselves to a different set of measures. But I can maybe hold the best intentions of somebody, but I think at the end of the day, those people want to just show that their school and their program, the way that they're operating them, is the best possible, has the best possible outcomes, and the natural evolution of dismantling or getting rid of something like NAEP is that there's going to be no way to compare, and everyone's just going to be showing the very smallest sliver of success that they can.
Yeah. And then I think we get into a world where we have employers creating additional entry-level responsibilities to assess whether or not the people they're hiring have baseline skills. Because if you can't trust what a high school or a college diploma looks like, you can barely trust it now. Imagine in a place where there is no even way to evaluate one state versus the other. You're going to have, lots of new hurdles being put in front of students, right? Having to take a test before getting out, all these different things it'll just make getting a job that much harder.
Yeah, but what's the conversation for folks that are just hell bent on? So I in my neighborhood, Covington, Louisiana. Shout out Covington, shout out Louisiana. But like, I have a group of folks or whatever. Like once they graduate from high school, the mindset is I need to get to work, and the mindset of the parents is you're 18 now. I'm no longer supporting you. And to me, it's mind-boggling for me because it's like, I guess you learn as a parent based off of how you were parented, and then the things that were like not akin to success, you kind of like refocus and rechannel and do the things that are going to make your kids be successful. And so I can't see my kids leaving my house until they have a down payment on a house, until they have plans secure, until they have like degrees or at least one degree, to where I know that like once you leave, you're not coming back.
Yeah.
So, but you're always welcome to come back. But like you're going to be so financially stable to where you're good.
But you have the resources to do that, right? I think that's the difference. There are families that just don't have the resources to be able to navigate an additional adult living in their home, right?
Okay.
Without that person providing. And there's all of this research that shows that the salary of your first job is actually an anchor point for your salary for the rest of your career. That becomes the place. That's the starting point. So if you start underpaid, it is ridiculously hard to not be underpaid 10, 15 years down the line, particularly if you don't have a degree. And that's really why, for me, the college degree becomes important, because it's about that first salary. It's about a great first career, not a great first job when you graduate. And that first career means you've got to make sure you've got a competitive salary when you first come out and you're not underpaid. So there's so much knowledge and so much resources that need to be available for people to be able to understand those things. And that should be happening either at the high school level or at the college level.
Bro, my first job out of college was as a manager trainee at Walgreens. I was so I had to get a job. I had to support myself, so I had to get a job, right? And so, but what I was waiting on that call from MTA. I was trying to get on the Long Island Railroad. If I could have got on the Long Island Railroad, we wouldn't even know each other right now, because I'd probably be part of the problem. I'd be a part of congestive pricing and like all that stuff.
You would have met just in very different circumstances.
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh yeah, definitely different circumstances. But as I think about my first job, man, I'm just like,
man, those were the times, man, because like you don't want a retail career, like if you don't have to have one.
Yeah.
And I don't think shout out to people that are working retail. You know, we love you. We love the fact that you love the job that you do, but it's not something that's for everybody. And so I encourage parents to have real conversations with their kids about the platitudes, about, hey, listen, if you work and you get your high school diploma, this is what your life is going to look like. If you get a college degree, here's what your life can look like. If you get an advanced degree, here's what your life can look like. And hopefully there are people in your family that you can point to like, hey, listen, this person has an advanced degree. Look at how that person is living, and so on and so forth, right? I know a lot of people don't have that, but you have friends that have that. And so let's start having real conversations with these kids.
Yeah.
I've never met a person in my entire life. I've never met a student in my entire life who has said to me, I don't want to go to college and I don't want to have a great job when I graduate. I've never heard that. Everybody wants social and economic mobility.
I've never heard the second one. I don't want to have a great job. I've never heard that. I've heard people, again, from my neighborhood say, college ain't for everybody. I don't want to go to college.
And that's okay. But they still want a great career, right? They still want, that should be the function of the work that we do, is to help set them off on the best career that they can have for themselves.
Right.
Yeah. Bro, no doubt. Because listen, and Steve, I think we might have had this conversation. I don't think it was on air, but bro, if I had known the things that I know now in terms of like being able to utilize a BOCES or something like that, bro, we still wouldn't know each other. We would. If I could have got a certification, in high school, and yeah, man, I don't know if I would have taken that debt on. Like head to head, like that.
Listen, if I ever lose this job, I'm gonna go one of those schools that teach you how to be an auto mechanic, because the hourly rate for auto mechanics right now is serious.
Listen. And if you do that, if you get that certification, I got some bread to open up our own shop. Because then we're gonna up the hourly. Because we're gonna build relationships.
But what did I just say?
Yeah.
But what did I just say? I'll go back for additional schooling. All of this stuff requires training. All of this stuff requires schooling, and we need to ensure that people understand that.
Yeah. I think it's like the amount of information that we now have about all the different ways we can navigate like post-secondary life. Like we have to be actively sharing that with young people and like weaving that into secondary education, especially to make sure that kids are aware and are thinking about their futures, like in the context of setting themselves up right now for like that long-term success that they think they want to have, and understand like the costs, and trade-offs. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah.
Agreed.
Bro.
And that's why these programs are so important at the higher ed level and this data is so important at the higher level, because the point is that how do we ensure that every student has an opportunity to optimize their career, unless we are given that opportunity, right? Yeah. Unless there's ways for them to pay for college, unless we understand what a good school versus a not good school looks like. Without that kind of program, it's just like, well, then you end up getting what you get, right? You go to the school down the block, right? Because that's the only one you know about, and that might not be the right place for you, right? You don't have the resources. And I think that's where I get concerned, is like, how do we make sure the students have the opportunities they want in front of them? Whatever they choose, whatever career they choose, they should have the opportunity to choose between a wide range, not just a couple.
Yeah. All right. Final thoughts. G, we're going to you first.
All right. The other day I was observing a high school advisory period, and they were doing an activity where they had to give a toast at their 90th birthday party.
Oh, that's
dope.
That's dope.
And it was cool because, it had the students really thinking about, I guess, by then I hope to have met the love of my life and had a family and had all these, different milestones in their lives. So it was a cool exercise. But the thing that tripped me out was that for those students who were 9th and 10th graders, their 90th birthday is going to be in 2100. And that's crazy.
Yeah, that is
bananas.
Steve, final thoughts.
This week I had the unique pleasure to spend some time with three alum of the Bottom Line program, three people who are now well into their career, amazing professionals, to talk about, the differences that Bottom Line made to them, the program we work in, and the difference that a consistent, caring, knowledgeable partner for their educational career made to them. And it was one of those things that when the world is hard, when things are going on outside that frustrates you, to be able to talk to students or former students who can talk to you about how much the work that you do has meant to them and meant to their trajectory. It's the reason why we all do this. Obviously, we all love the salaries and I love being able to pay rent, as I often say. But at the end of the day, the true reward is to hear these students talk about how important our programs were to them and how important the support was to them, and to see them just do amazing things, C-suite level roles in huge companies. And it's amazing to see. And it sort of filled my cup in a way that I needed this week.
Bro, I'm in a contract year and I'm looking for a supermax. And I word. Yo.
You gotta watch out for that trade deadline.
I'm already looking at some signing trades for the off season. Hey, don't play with me. Don't play in my face. None of that.
So calling you AD right now.
For 13 years, baby, we've been out here doing what we're doing, rocking out. It's time for the superbacks. But my final thought is this, right? Like, so I want everybody that knows me, everybody that's in this work, everybody that is doing work that is cumbersome and unrewarding at times, I want you guys to experience joy. And so for me, tomorrow, I'm going to experience joy because I'm going to see my Knicks play the Boston Celtics tomorrow. And hopefully, if this lineup works the way that I need for it to work, I'm going to get a same-day parlay. And that is how I'm trying to experience joy tomorrow.
Listen, he's either getting a supermax contract or he's gonna try to parlay that as much as he can.
Yeah. So we'll see you next week. Next week is the day of love. So I don't know if everybody's gonna be on here. I don't know what's happening. But you may see it next week, you may not.
And I'll be a year older next Friday too. So who knows?
You born on Valentine's Day?
No, I was born on the 11th. But by next week, I'll be a year older.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
There it is.
You about to hit a milestone, right?
No. I got one more year before that milestone. Be easy.
All right, we'll see you next week.